You cannot get the economy going again by raising taxes on those people who we expect to create jobs in America and to get the economy going again.
Well, let me just add in our last minute, I mean, you can hear the objections to that, the same ones we're hearing right now from Republicans and some Democrats, that would hurt, that would hurt small businesses, that would hurt the investors, the very people who potentially can get economic growth back again.
Well, let me emphasize, number one, small business leaders were not hurt during the Clinton years, where the Clinton marginal tax rate on the top earners was 39%. Secondly, only 3% of small business owners have incomes over $250,000 and would be affected in any event.
Let me just say this. The Joint Committee on Taxation, which is a nonpartisan body, says that only 3% of those small business people, you keep talking about all the small business people that are going to get taxed, only 3% would be affected by that. Or do you quarrel with that figure? Is that a right figure or a wrong figure?
Well, it may be 3%, but it's half of small business income because obviously the top 3% have half of the gross income for those companies that we would term small businesses.
A variety of sources, including court documents, confirm that when Republicans talk about the small businesses they're trying to help with their tax cut, they're actually talking about some of the biggest companies in the world and some of the richest people in this country. Mr. Boehner admitting this summer that his tax cuts only benefit 3% of so-called small businesses.
The other thing to note, Jeff, is that when Republicans and others who don't want to go back to the Clinton tax rates talk about small businesses, they fail to acknowledge that most of the really very wealthy small businesses, the ones that are earning a lot of money, those are really individuals. They are investment bankers or they are doctors or lawyers who have registered themselves, and they talk about themselves, and they also file income taxes as if they're businesses, and that's good for them in terms of their tax rate, but they don't generate a lot of jobs.
They call them pass-through companies because they file no taxes, passing through profits to the owners who report them on their individual tax returns instead. In short, they are considered small, not because they have a small payroll, but because they have a small number of owners. It's not the income that's small. It's not the number of employees that's small. It's just the total number of owners that's small.
These are not mom-and-pop stores or mom-and-pop factories. These are very high-paid professionals. So there's no reason that they should be subjected to another year, or there's no reason that they should get another year of the Bush tax cut that was really designed, and everybody expected it would be only 10 years.
According to the Washington Post, more than 1 million people who reported at least $200,000 in income in 2008 were partnerships and S-corps. The richer you are, the more likely you are to call yourself a small business that way. 89% of Americans who make more than $10 million a year filed as a partnership or as an S-corp. In 2008, more than 500,000 of these supposed small businesses had more than $1 million in assets. In 2005, almost 20,000 of them had annual receipts of more than $50 million.
But aren't you kind of holding the tax cuts for the lower income people, the people making less than $250,000 hostage, so you can give those tax cuts to the upper brackets? I mean, there are a lot more people below those top brackets than are in than those upper brackets. Why wouldn't you want to do something for those folks?
I want to do something for all Americans who pay taxes. When you start to look at who's going to be taxed, about half of all small business income will be taxed under the president's proposal. These are the very people that we expect to invest in the economy and to begin creating jobs. Why would we want to punish them?
Farrell Gas, which provides propane and propane accessories with a small business touch to 1 million customers. A small business.
It is just, it will help our economy because middle-class folks are the folks who are most likely to actually spend this tax relief.
What we tend to forget when we talk about taxes is that most middle-class, working-class people are already taxed enormously. The sales taxes in most states have gone up. The taxes that we call payroll taxes that deal with Social Security and unemployment insurance. Those payroll taxes, FICA, have actually gone up. 80% of American workers pay more in payroll taxes than they do in income taxes.
And if the other party continues to hold these tax cuts hostage, these are the same families who will suffer the most when their taxes go up next year. And if we can't get an agreement with Republicans, that's what will happen.
If we want to solve the budget problem, we've got to have a healthy economy, and we have to get our arms around the runaway spending that's going on in Washington, D.C.
I just want to clarify this. I mean, I'm relying on what Chairman Greenspan said, maybe if you're accusing him of funding Washington games.
I understand there's an election coming up, but the American people didn't send us here to just think about our jobs. They sent us here to think about theirs. They sent us here to think about their lives and their children's lives, and to be responsible and to be serious about the challenges we face as a nation.
He says that tax cuts that aren't paid for are not cutting the deficit, that they are not actually paid for, it's borrowed money. And so do you believe tax cuts pay for themselves or not?
I do believe that we've got to get more money in the hands of small businesses and American families to get our economy going again. And the only way to get that economy going again is to do that and to get our arms around the spending.
But understand, if we don't take meaningful steps to rein in our debt, it could damage our markets, increase the cost of borrowing, and jeopardize our recovery, all of which would have an even worse effect on our job growth and family incomes. From some on the right, I expect we'll hear a different argument. If we just make fewer investments in our people, extend tax cuts, including those for the wealthier Americans, eliminate more regulations, maintain the status quo on health care, our deficits will go away. The problem is, that's what we did for 8 years.
Try to make sure that any serious candidate for the president, and most importantly the two nominees for the major parties, that they make fiscal responsibility one of their top 3 priorities. If they don't deserve to be president. And if they don't, we're in trouble.
Let's see if they listen.
And the reality is people are worried about their future, and ultimately your point is the right one. I only make the point about the back and forth of it. There has to be some honesty about bipartisanship. You can't in the morning say you want it, in the afternoon do everything.
Let's talk about the
Mr. President, a point of clarification. What's in the Better Solutions book are all the legislative proposals
I understand.
that were offered
I've actually read your bills.
Throughout 2009.
I understand.
And so rest assured the summary document you received is backed up by precisely the kind of detailed legislation that Speaker Pelosi and your administration have been busy ignoring for 12 months.
Right. Wait, hold on a second.
Well,
no. Hold on a second.
Well, I mean, the last time that we had Republicans in to do a bipartisan summit, or the first time we had Republicans in for a bipartisan summit at the White House, right, was March of last year. The Republicans in the House proposed 4 planks that they wanted in health reform. They wanted buying insurance across state lines, allowing individuals to pool together, state innovation, and tort reform. Versions of all of those things are in the bill. Famously in April, President Obama said, if I'm willing to go a lot further than I have on tort reform, what are you willing to give? Republicans said nothing. We're literally not willing to give anything in exchange for that. So the idea that it's just now that Democrats want to sit down with Republicans is, again, it's factually wrong, even though it's Beltway common wisdom.
No. Hold on a second, guys. You know, Mike, I've read your legislation. I mean, I take a look at this stuff and the good ideas we take. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, I guess, that all of us have to be mindful of. It can't be all or nothing one way or the other.
The stimulus, that was a big debate here this week. Both of you were supporters of it. The Republican Party, though, staked out a pretty stark position on the stimulus. It was summed up by Mitt Romney at the CPAC convention this week when he basically, this is his take, and really speaking for the Republican Party in general on what the stimulus did.
He scared employers, so jobs were scarce. His nearly $1 trillion stimulus created not one net new job in the private sector.
If we put together a stimulus package in which a third of it are tax cuts that normally you guys would support, that your governors certainly would support, Democrat or Republican. And then you've got some infrastructure, and maybe there's some things in there that you don't like in terms of infrastructure, or you think the bill should have been $500 billion instead of $700 billion, or there's this provision or that provision that you don't like. If there's uniform opposition because the Republican caucus doesn't get 100% or 80% of what you want, then it's going to be hard to get a deal done. That's because that's not how democracy works.
Not one net new job in the private sector.
Governor Schwarzenegger, that is where the Republicans are. The stimulus was a failure, and it did not create one net new job in the private sector. True?
Well, to me, I find it interesting that you have a lot of the Republicans running around and pushing back on the stimulus money and saying this doesn't create any new jobs, and then they go out and they do the photo ops and they're posing with the big check and they say, isn't this great? Look what the kind of money I provide here for the state, and this is great money to create jobs, and this has created 10,000 new jobs, and this has created 20,000 new jobs, and all of those kind of things. It doesn't match up.
What we really need to do is work together in a responsible way to address the needs of our economy and the needs of American families and small businesses.
Last week, the Senate blocked a law that I had supported to create a bipartisan fiscal commission that would come up with a set of recommendations for cutting our deficits in the long term. This is a difficult thing. It's only going to be solved if we do it together. This law failed by 7 votes when 7 Republicans who had co-sponsored the bill, had co-sponsored the idea, suddenly walked away from their own proposal after I endorsed it.
At the top of the show today, we talked about the myth of bipartisanship, the futility of Democrats, including the president, wasting time trying to persuade Republicans to go along with them on policies that are good for the country.
No to clean energy jobs. No to making college more affordable. No to reforming Wall Street.
It totally makes sense in the abstract. If people can agree on what needs to be done to solve the country's problems, then those policies, even if they're big policies, should get votes from everyone who's in agreement. In the abstract, that's how it works. In Washington, that is not at all how it works.
I heard somebody out here was yelling, "Yes, we can." Remember that was our slogan? Their slogan is, "No, we can't."
New jobs, and this has created 20,000 new jobs, and all of those kind of things. It doesn't match up. So exactly. So I mean, I think
hypocrisy at the highest level.
I think I don't want to beat up of my Republican colleagues, but I think it's kind of politics rather than thinking about only one thing, and this is how do we support the president? How do we support him and do everything that we can in order to go and stimulate the economy, get the economy back, and think about the people rather than politics?
So they make a proposal, they sign on to the bill. I say, great, good idea. I turn around. They're gone. What happened? Now, look, it's one thing to have an honest difference of opinion on something. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can't walk away from your responsibilities to confront the challenges facing the country because you don't think it's good short-term politics. We can't afford that. We can't afford that.
What Republicans are doing on policy is no longer interesting. It is so thoroughly, unrelentingly, consistently predictable that anyone who thinks it's an open question as to what Republicans are going to do about the next legislation that's proposed just is not paying attention.
Tomorrow we're expecting another dismal jobs report on top of the 500,000 jobs that were lost last month, on top of the 500,000 jobs that were lost the month before that, on top of the 2.6 million jobs that were lost last year. Now, for you, these aren't just statistics. This is not a game.
I have been the first governor of the Republican governors to come out and to support the stimulus money because I said to myself, this is terrific.